I really want to just take the opportunity to welcome you all here this morning. It is really exciting, as Katrina said, to be back here in person. And I just think it's fantastic to see the range of talks and activities that the Bernal Institute have organised for today as part of Research Week. So Research Week is an opportunity for the university to really showcase the range and depth and breadth of research that's ongoing at the university, and also to thread through a number of events that support particular early career researchers. So it's just wonderful, and that we can now manage to have this in a hybrid way. So I'm delighted that, with all the effort that's gone into this event. So I would like to just start by particularly thanking my wonderful colleagues in the research office. So Christine and Sean and Yvonne and Richard and Adam, who've put in phenomenal work over the last number of weeks to ensure we have this very vibrant, energising and exciting week. And in today's event, as we know, is focusing very much about looking at the circular economy. And this fits so well with the University of Limerick's sustainability framework, which has recently been finalised. And this is a framework that permeates across the entire organisation, looking at elements of sustainability in everything from our academic programmes to our research to how we do all the things that we do at the University of Limerick. And it is very exciting that today we will launch our Sustainability Challenge, which will bring together our students with our research. And what you're going to see today underneath that umbrella is wonderful examples of a range of research that fits under a sustainability umbrella, as well as the other sustainable development goals for the university. Our research at the University of Limerick orients to the sustainable development goals, and we've recently recalibrated our strategic plan, and within that we've very much emphasised that we are a research-led university. And again, something like Research Week gives emphasis and a real tangible understanding of what that research-led emphasis looks like. So without further ado, I just want to finalise by again acknowledging all of you and your attendance here today. Wish you all the best for a very exciting day ahead, but also for the rest of the week. There's more events to come, and following a very exciting day yesterday. So very well delighted to have you here with us, Minister Smith, and very much looking forward to the rest of the morning. And I'll hand you back now to Katrina. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Nora-Lee Kennedy there, our Vice President Research UL. So, as we said, we've lots to look forward to and so many exciting events and speakers. But before we do that, someone who needs no introduction, please will you welcome Professor Luc van der Wielen, our Director of the Bernal Institute.
Thanks, Katrina. As a director of this institute, I'm really delighted to see a filled-up audience again after 2 years of remote. This has been a tough time for all of us, and it is good to share particularly ideas about the next, or maybe even bigger, issue that we are facing as mankind around climate and the measures that we can undertake there. There are more slides to cover this. I'm not going to use them, but I use this particular one to underline that the Bernal Institute appreciates fundamental research, but it appreciates even more to bring that into implementation, to work with our industry partners. And as you can see, industry partners also work with us. So with this, I would also like to thank them for support, not only for today, but certainly also for the projects and the many that will come. The institute is located in Limerick, very close to the Ardnacrusha hydro dam, which was about a century ago the biggest energy project that transformed Irish economy from rural to the more modern economy that we are in today. I think, and that was all renewable energy at that time, because it was a hydro dam. And for those of you who haven't seen it, one of the original runners of the turbine, donated by the colleagues of ESB, is at the courtyard of the Institute to remind us of that situation. Now, a century further, we need transformation again, and it probably is again coming from the same coast, where we will be seeing floating wind energy pop up in the coming period, and where we have to be looking into renewables again, because there's not only renewable energy that we are looking at, but also the exact materials. The scale at which this will be happening doesn't make it into an Irish, but more into a European project. But we have to start thinking about that appropriately in terms of how do we recycle end of life, also those materials, and how are we going to use that renewable energy to improve the circularity, improve the footprint of our current industries, and look for new ones to come. For a Structured Materials Research Institute, where we particularly look at research in materials, this is an exciting development. We want to contribute to that. We have noted the development of the Economic Task Force, which will be an important contributor, I hope, to support that development. And we discussed yesterday with the director of Science Foundation Ireland how the same sort of approach of a national team looking into climate, reporting out, communicating to the wider public, how that could help and support the Economic Task Force development. I think Katrina said rightfully, the pandemic was maybe more tangible, and from the climate side, well, we see, you know, a little bit warmer, which isn't bad for Ireland in some points, a little bit drier, which could also be bad, not too bad for Ireland. But it is very clear that the urgency is somewhat less. And what we try to do at the Institute is to reach out to our students, to our undergraduate and other students, to community wider, with measures that could improve resilience, that could improve circularity, and that could benefit renewable energy. So by the presence of the Minister today and through the social media that you have seen, we have launched a university-wide campaign on sustainability as a challenge for our student body to come up with good ideas. They will be filtered into the most promising ones, and those teams will be supported to implement these ideas using the facilities of the university, the institute, the wider campus, the city, and maybe also wider in the region as the test beds. And we are really looking forward to that as well. So with that, I would like to thank the Minister for his presence and supporting through that, the panelists for the upcoming discussion, Director of Science Foundation Ireland for yesterday and today's support, and all you for your presence, just your presence here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Professor Luc van der Wielen there, our Director of Bernal Institute. And I must bring up something he mentioned there about the power station in Ardnacrusha, which is very fitting because our keynote speaker today, Minister Oisin Smith TD, who I'd love to welcome up now, has a connection because we were chatting earlier at the photo shoot outside. And Minister, I believe your grandfather was instrumental in Ardnacrusha and the power station, is that right? And your dad, in fact, is an organic chemist. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my grandfather, is this microphone on? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
My grandfather is from Limerick, and he came from a one-parent family. He left school around that time, I suppose 100 years ago, there was another pandemic, and he got his first job with Siemens, building the Ardnacrusha power station. So that was the time when Ireland became 100% renewable electricity country, and it was, I suppose, the biggest infrastructure project in Europe. It was something to be proud of. He was a very smart, capable man with an engineering mind, but he never had the opportunity to come to a place like this and study formally, and I think it would have been amazing. I think he would be amazed to come here and see this beautiful high-tech campus in his home city.
Well, we're so delighted that you could be here with us today, and as you said, so many events happening virtually, so the fact that you made the time in your schedule to be here today, we are delighted to have you. So please, will you welcome in our keynote address our Minister Oisin Smith.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katrina. Thank you, everybody, for having me here today. My name is Oisin Smith. I'm the Minister of State for Circular Economy in the Irish Government, and it's my job to transform the Irish economy from its broken industrial model that we have at the moment into a circular economy model. So it's a big challenge. We're in the information age, and yet the economic model that we use is based on the industrial age. It's based on the idea that you find things in the ground, you extract them, you exploit them, you bring them to a factory, and then you make it into something, and then you get that thing and you use it up, you consume it, and then you burn it, or you put it in a field and you let it rot into the atmosphere. So that's how our model works. And it's like a lot of things. it works up to a point, and then it doesn't scale anymore. So we're reaching that limit where, our economy based on you consume and you consume and you consume is not working. We can see the basic prices of things climbing all the time. We can see that things are running out. So for example, with fossil fuels, the oil that we use in 1 year on Earth was laid down over 1 million years. Now, it doesn't take long to see that it's not a policy that can last. It's not sustainable. It doesn't last. And so there has been a change of mindset amongst policymakers and amongst the public that this is something that we need to get away from, that our gold standard of how we measure our economy, which is GDP, built into that measure is the idea of consumption. And so the basic underlying idea of GDP is that the more you consume, the faster that you deplete your finite resources, the richer you are. And that doesn't add up. That's not prosperity. Clearing out your cupboards as fast as you can in a way that leaves nothing behind is not prosperity. And I think there has been a realization about that, particularly in Ireland, where GDP was pretty much abandoned as a measure of how our economy was doing compared to other economies. And the CSO and the SRI and the economists had to sit down and say, yeah, GDP, it doesn't really tell us much at all. We have to find other measures of prosperity and well-being. What is it that makes us happy? Apart from things running out, one of the other problems with the traditional linear economy is that it creates a lot of pollution. We have so much plastic going into our rivers and then going into our seas and then ending up in the fish and in the human food chain that biologists tell us that when they examine the human body, they can now see bits of plastic within our bodies. And we know as well that climate change, that roughly 50% of the emissions going into the air are from the manufacture of goods. And many of those goods, as you know, we don't really need them. When you provide somebody with something, you provide somebody with a meal, you provide somebody with a car, it really helps their prosperity and their wealth and their well-being. But when you provide them with a second one, it's not twice as good. And that's the fundamental problem with our measures of wealth that we've had up to now, is the idea that you can, twice as much of something is twice as good. So, and there are other problems with the circular economy. If our economy is based on extracting things out of mines, if it's based on very rapid manufacture at low wages, then we're promoting very hard social conditions for people around the world, sweatshops, mine workers, and so on. And so, we're fundamentally trying to change that. And we're moving towards an idea that instead of thinking of the byproducts from manufacturing as waste, as a problem that we need to deal with, as something to burn or something to put in a field, that waste is a resource, and that we need to find a way to mine our waste, to reuse to keep our precious resources within our society circulating, and not to be so dependent on exported products taken from mines on the other side of the world. And in recent days, with the trouble in the Ukraine and with the shock to global supply chains, I think that there is more of a belief that we need to become more self-sufficient as an economy. We need to be less dependent on what happens on the other side of the world. So, I'm looking back. If I look back 20 years, Ireland was using 2 billion plastic bags a year, and this idea arose that we should put a levy on plastic bags. And initially, the original proposal was that it would come in at 0.03 cents. Eventually, it was 15 cents, and it had a dramatic effect. 98% of the litter that was being created by plastic bags disappeared. People had to change their behavior. Shops had to change their behavior. But overall, the policy was extremely successful. It raised money. The money that was raised was ring-fenced. It was used for environmental purposes. But mostly, people changed their behavior and they saw the benefit. And when people were asked afterwards, how do you feel about this plastic bag levy, 90% of people the year after said they approved of it, which is unheard of for a tax. Generally, people are not favorable towards a levy or a tax. And the reason that they supported it was that they saw the benefit around them. Up to that point, as you went around Ireland, every wire, every tree, every telegraph pole was festooned with white plastic, and people could see that dramatic change within a year. They could see that it had worked. So there is a role there there was a role there for government. Government had to bring in that levy. The shops had to implement it, but also individuals at the end had to change their behaviour, had to know that you bring your bags when you go shopping, and if you forget, you pay a small fee. So they were the three things interacting together. It couldn't have worked with one person, with one of those groups on their own. So I think a real lesson from this is that if the plastic bag levy had just been an advertising campaign, if the government had said, oh, please reuse your bags, please don't, please, it's bad for the environment if you get a bag every time, don't always ask for a bag, that wouldn't have worked. An advertising campaign or a campaign aimed entirely at the individual would not have worked. It needed government regulation. It needed as well industry to cooperate. And also we had to have some academics, because we had to have some data analysis before and afterwards to see if it was working, and some monitoring. So in a similar way, I'm making a new law, the Circular Economy Bill, and Katrina says it's past the Dáil. In fact, it's the way that laws work is that they have to go through a lot of stages. So it's past the first stage, and the opposition said they liked it and they were all in favour, but it will have to go through committees, and it'll have to go through the Senate, and it'll have to go through everything else and be signed by the President. So we're a few weeks away, but I'm hopeful, and next week I'll be in committee in the Dáil answering questions, and mostly what people are saying to me is they like the Circular Economy Bill, but they want more things in it. So, that's exactly what I want to hear as Minister, and I am willing, of course, to change it in some ways. A lot of what I have to do in politics is listening. I can't make good laws. I can't make laws that are acceptable to the public. I can't solve problems without actually listening to the public. And it's the same for you as academics. It's the same as for somebody who's working in industry trying to sell to customers. You cannot do good work sitting on your own at your desk. You really only improve and grow when you go outside and you meet people. One of the reasons that I'm in Limerick today, it really does help. So I do encourage you all to make sure that you're always out there listening to people and talking to people. So part of this will be so I'll just tell you very briefly about the Circular Economy Bill. It does bring in a new levy on coffee cups. We're using 1.2 billion coffee cups, we're using 200 million coffee cups a year in Ireland. A larger number in the UK, but we're using 200 million a year in Ireland. And my goal is to reduce that by putting a small levy on the use of disposable coffee cups. And I've worked with the cafes, and I've spoken to the public, and we will go out for another round of public consultation on it. But ultimately what it means is that people will bring their own cup, and that they will save money, because the cafe at the moment is paying 20 cents every time you have a coffee, and they're transferring that cost to you. And all the money that is raised from circular economy levies, from an incinerator, there's going to be a levy on incineration, a levy on landfill, and a levy on disposable rubbish, like I'm going to bring in something next year on fast food companies. But all of that money will be ring-fenced for circular economy transition. And that means that the money will be used, for example, for research into a circular economy. It'll be used for grants for businesses that need to change their business model so that they can work with the circular economy. It will be used for training, used for education, but it will be ring-fenced, and it will be used in that way. And part of the reason for that is to assure people that the levies that are collected are not simply a tax to go into general taxation. And it's difficult to do that because civil servants don't want that. They always advise their minister they don't want ring-fenced taxes. They want the money to go in to be used for whatever is needed. I'm also aware that the European Union, so while I'm making my laws in Ireland, the European Union is making its laws. And they are bringing in this idea of a right to repair. This is the idea, this is trying to get away from built-in obsolescence, the idea that every few months there's a new product, slightly shinier, slightly different, that makes the old product obsolete. And when you go and try and fix, if you do want to try and fix your old product, you can't do it. So the European Union has been working to try to make products last longer, but also to make them easier to repair. And so, for example, they are going to mandate companies that they must provide spare parts. They are going to put labels on products that indicate the durability of the product. So you go to buy a washing machine and you're told this one has a 5-year life expectancy, this has a 10-year life expectancy. So you get different color codes to tell you how long it's going to last, and also whether the product is repairable or not. And you can think of this with some manufacturers of phones, for example, who were gluing their phones together, which made it impossible or almost impossible to change the battery when the battery wore out. And you would be tempted to believe that they did this on purpose because they wanted you to buy something else. Some products are obsolete because They don't function anymore. Your washing machine is obsolete when it can't wash clothes anymore. But other products become obsolete because they're not fashionable anymore. So there's a psychological obsolescence. Perhaps your clothing, you can't wear it anymore because it's out of fashion, or perhaps your phone is not the latest model, but in fact, it's still coping. So part of the challenge for us is to try to change people's mindset about what it is to buy a new product, about the joy of looking after something that you already own, about if you have a pair of shoes that you really love and you bring it round to the shoemaker and have it repaired or have it restored, or you have furniture or you have clothing and you have it looked after, that there is a psychological benefit to that, which is similar or at least as good as opening a new product from a new box that's the latest thing in the new line of the new season, of the new fashion. So trying to persuade people towards that, looking at products as something that they look after as part of their heritage, something that has lineage, something that has emotional connection, is going to be a challenge for us all. But part of that is coming back to an economy that our parents and grandparents would have known, where there are many more people available to fix things. Recently, my TV stopped working. The audio was there, but the video went. And my family turned around and said, great, time to buy a new TV. And I said, no, time to find a person who fixes TVs, which is difficult to do now. So part of this whole thing is part of what we're doing with the circular economy. We'll be training people towards repair, getting more jobs that are local, and moving away from the idea that when money is spent in the economy, that it goes to production, often on the other side of the world, and with new raw materials, when really there's only some small part that's left to change. It's not convincing if somebody like me comes in and says all this stuff, and then I'm not doing it myself. It's important that everybody in the public sector is leading by example, that we are practicing what we preach, that we are doing what we say. And I'm in charge of procurement for the government. I'm in charge of the government's shopping, purchasing. And we buy 16 billion euros of goods and services every year. And I am working with my civil servants to make sure that they are doing that in a circular economy way, that they are buying products that have been upcycled, that they are reusing things, that they are buying products that are durable, that they are sending products to be repaired instead of disposing of things, and so on. Because we have to do that. But there's a real role for academia in this. This is new stuff. There is a lot of innovation, a lot of possibility for new products in the business sector. And so, this is really the opening of a world of opportunity. And the stuff that you're doing in materials research or in research into sustainability is really going to help. And it's going to take your young and intelligent brains to achieve those things. And it is enjoyable and it's meaningful work. I love what I do, and I'm sure that you will love what you do, because the things that you're doing are changing the economy itself for the better and changing the world for the better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. A very passionate speech there, and some fascinating insights into the very clever and practical solutions that we can all adopt and that the public sector is striving to help us with, and bringing the public on board. And congratulations on the first passing of the bill. I like to manifest things, so hopefully, as you said, with a few tweaks here and there, that will get through. I invite you to stay for our fireside chat. We'd love to get a little bit of more insight from you a little bit later, after hearing from our academia and also our industry experts. Just letting you know as well, if you want to tweet about this, it's #ResearchWeekUL, or to get more information, ul.ie/researchweek. And as I said, we've lots more to come, but we are going to have our fireside chat now. So I'm going to sit down next to our minister here, and we're going to focus on our guest today. So I want to have a very warm welcome. We have our industry and academia fireside discussion now. And I'm going to kick things off, but I just want to welcome first Emma Milan from R&D Process Development from Boston Scientific. Welcome, Emma. Unfortunately, Mike Morrissey, our Catalyst Director from Analog Devices, cannot be with us due to a last-moment urgent commitment, but we thank Mike, and I'm sure he'll be hopefully listening in and looking on virtually. We also welcome Morgan Finnerty, our Project Director from ESB. Welcome, Morgan. We have from Bow Park, of course, David Tobin, our Sustainability Director. So thank you so much for being with us today. Virtually today, we have, God, it was all virtual a while back. It's so nice today that we have you here, but virtually today from Becton Dickinson, Amit Limerick, who is our Sustainability Manager, is joining us as well. And then from our academia, we have Professor J.J. Leahy from our Department of Chemical Sciences at the Burnell Institute here in UL. Welcome, Professor. We also have Dr. Emmett O'Reilly as well from our Department also of Chemical Sciences in the Burnell Institute. So a great panel, I think you'll agree. And we talked earlier, and Professor Luke mentioned just about how we are coming together here today. And we're so glad that you were with us as well. And hopefully at the end we might have a little bit of space for some questions. So keep that in mind. And we'll also ask our Minister to give us some thoughts as well. But I suppose we will focus on our industry speakers for the moment if we can. And I'm going to go, I think we'll go in the order that I gave there as our introduction, just to make it fairer. But I want to ask, as an industry, what are you doing to meet the sustainability challenges? And I suppose we will start in order. So Emma, if you could address that question first, please.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay? Is that okay? Yeah, so for us as a medical device company, like fundamentally what we're all about is life-saving and life-enhancing medical device solutions for our patients. We're also very much tied into our corporate social responsibility, one of our initiatives being protecting the environment. So as a company back in 2017, we made a commitment to aim for carbon neutrality by 2030, and that's across all our manufacturing and distribution sites. We've also joined the UN's campaign for Race to Zero. So what that does is allows us, it's kind of a science target-driven initiative there, but I suppose what it does is it puts us on that trajectory to aim for carbon neutrality across our entire value chain by 2050. So we're very much tied in with those initiatives there.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I'm going to put that also to Morgan, please, from ESB. That's Morgan Finnerty, our Project Director.
Thanks. So ESB obviously is an electricity supply company, you know, and hopefully at some point in the future we'll be an energy supply company when we get into hydrogen manufacturing and supply and all that. So sustainability has to be front and centre of our modus operandi, really, and our recent net zero 2040 strategy, I think, reflects that. So there's a number of key areas of investment we've identified in order to bring that forward, you know, and to realise that one of them would be, of course, renewable generation, you know. So at present we've invested and we're developing a multi-gigawatt portfolio of energy or electricity generation projects between offshore wind and onshore wind and solar and all that. And furthermore, what we want to do is invest in the Irish grid system as well to make sure that it's resilient in order to be able to take all that extra wattage, you know, or megawattage, and deliver it to the customers in an efficient manner. And furthermore as well, and one of the most important things maybe that sometimes get overlooked, is to empower the customers themselves, you know, in order to be able to do their bit to bring us to a net zero economy. And by that we mean supplying them with the services and the products that they need in order to do their bit. So an example of that might be the Climo system in your home, or else the smart metering systems now that are being installed. So all those things combined, you know, hopefully it'll all come together to get us there in the end, you know.
Fantastic. And then we move to David Tobin, our Sustainability Manager at Becton Dickinson. Tell us a little bit.
Sorry, it's David Tobin from Beaupark, which is the...
Apologies, yes, from Beaupark. Yes, sorry. David Tobin, Beaupark, yeah. You're absolutely correct.
We're at the very end of the chain. We're parent company to companies like Panda, Green Star, and then we've a number of waste companies in the UK. So all told, we manage about 4 million tonnes of waste. But if you look at the history of our company, which started from Panda, we didn't have landfills, we didn't have energy from waste facilities, and we've avoided that end-of-pipe solution. Yeah, so we've avoided that end-of-pipe solution. We've been highly motivated all the way through our history to divert materials away from landfill into recycling, and it's because the entrepreneur that founded our company initially, he just didn't want to pay for landfill. He didn't want to pay for incineration, so he was taking the financial benefit of taking materials out from disposal and into recycling. So the company has been acquired, and now we're owned by a larger fund, but that whole founding philosophy for the business is still there, that we want to maximize recycling, resource recovery, and that's pretty much what we do as a business. Now, in the modern era and the language of all sustainability, we're just doing what we've always done, which is to avoid disposal, avoid incineration. So with the new kind of sustainability language and environmental social governance, I mean, we have our corporate goals of zero carbon by 2040, and we also have signed up to the UN Sustainable Development Charter as well. So, you know, we're doing all of these things, but really, as a business, we're doing what we always did, which was to try and recycle and recover as much as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. That's David Tobin, of course, from Bow Park. Amit, we have, if you look to our screen there, welcome Amit. So good to have you, of course, for Becton Dickinson, our Sustainability Manager. What are your thoughts then from your perspective on those challenges?
Thank you for the opportunity. I am not able to join with you in person today, but isn't technology great? So my name is Amit Limay. I'm R&D Director of Sustainability for Becton Dickinson. And to answer your question, I think I will build off what Emma said and what David said. Becton Dickinson has a very explicit focus and strategy around sustainability through our ESG 2030 Together We Advance vision, which was recently announced. And we have signed up for H2Zero. We have very specific science-based targets that we are pursuing. One of the things that I really liked about the way Becton Dickinson has we have put together this strategy is we have 5 focus areas or impact areas, if you will. One of them is explicitly around climate change. The second one is around transparency and governance. The third one being around healthy communities and workforce. Along the lines of corporate social responsibility that Emma talked about earlier. Then we have responsible supply chain. And finally, we have the Product Impact Council, or the Product Impact, which very specifically focuses on the kinds of products we make and all the way from acquisition of raw materials on one end to the end of life on the other. So everything in Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3, everything is captured and being measured, and then we are looking at different ways, recycling being one of them, which is a big part of the circularity discussion here, to really enable that journey towards a reduced carbon footprint.
I'm just going to turn our attentions now to our academia experts on our panel today. So I suppose from an academic perspective, I'm just wondering, and I will start with you, Professor J.J. Leahy. I'm just wondering what kind of help you need, or what your fellow academics need in support to engage with the kind of problems that we're discussing here today.
I think that there has always been a willingness for us to engage. I'm not really sure if we need much help. I think industry needs help more than, particularly the SME sector in Ireland. And I think that's where we can be of benefit. I think that one of the things that we can do, particularly scientists and engineers, is act as an interface between policy instruments, between standards, which the EU has certainly been very keen to roll out, and the Minister just mentioned some of them there, these obligations which would be imposed on some of the manufacturing companies. But I think a key thing that we can do, because these large manufacturing companies are very unlikely to be operating the repair services, I do think that academia can play a very useful role at the interface. And I think that both at a local level, but also at an international level. And if I'll come back in later, maybe I have some other suggestions as well.
Fantastic. That's what we're here for today. That's brilliant. Dr. Emmett O'Reilly, who's also with our Department of Chemical Sciences in Bernal Institute, I suppose I'll put the same to you in the sense of, first of all, the supports that you feel that you would need, but as you were saying, of course, the ways in which that you feel that you can help.
Thank you. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I think it's important to assist industry engaging with academia, okay, around the whole recyclability issue. If we think about the industries we have here today, okay, so we have Bow Park, okay, who deal in recyclable materials. We have Boston, we have BD, Boston and BD use large amounts of plastics, okay, in their actual production process. Now, currently in Ireland, maybe about 28% of plastics get recycled, okay, so we need to increase that number. And the method in which we can do that, okay, is essentially by increasing demand. Now, if we think about BD or Boston, or a company that wants to actually buy the raw material for plastic, they have two sources, okay? They have the recycled material, mechanically recycled, and they have the kind of native virgin material, okay, which is essentially just coming out of the oil, okay? Now, really we need to address the imbalance in terms of cost, okay, between those products. I think it's important to incentivize the use of recycled materials, okay, to assist industry, okay, to purchase these materials for their actual production processes. Now, secondly then, where does academia actually coming in? So once you've leveled the playing field, there's a lot that academia can actually do. So BD or Boston, for example, may have concerns about using recycled materials in their final product, okay? There's certain critical quality attributes that need to be adhered to. Academia can assist in addressing those. Okay, so we can actually perform analysis, okay, on these recycled feedstocks, okay, to actually ensure that they meet the same standard, okay, and there'll be the same product quality, okay, in the final product that's actually produced by a particular company, okay. And that type of analysis we have done here previously in Bernal. So I think a key thing, once that playing field has been leveled, okay, and the adoption of recycled materials, okay, as feedstocks and products, okay, once that playing field has been completely leveled, really what academia can do then is engage with the industry, okay, help them implement internal quality control processes, okay, to ensure that the same standard in terms of final product is actually met. But again, it comes back to leveling that playing field, okay. Industry really needs to be incentivized, okay, especially large plastic users, to purchase their raw feedstocks, okay, from recyclable sources. Okay, so I know I delved a little bit more into the technical side there, but I think that's the low-hanging fruit that we can do immediately. Okay, and we've done activities like that here in Bernal previously as well.
Fantastic. I am very keenly aware that Minister Smith has a vote in the Dáil today that you have to get to. So before we let you go, I just wanted, because we're going to take some questions and we'll talk further with our panel. But before we go, I was just wondering your insights, just after hearing from some of our representatives there from both industry and from the academic side of things. What were your thoughts on that?
Thank you. I went out a few months ago to Beaupark's facility in West Dublin, and I wanted to see what was happening with how things are actually recycled. When the green bin comes along, you do a lot of work in your kitchen to segregate the stuff, but once the bin's gone, you've no idea where it goes, and there's a lot of stories that it's all burnt or it's all sent to China or whatever. So I went around to see what happens, and the plastic that's extracted, it's all done by machines and robots. It's all powered by solar electricity. I was happy with what I saw. But it goes into these, at the end of it all, there's a pile of rubbish at one end. At the other end are materials that have been recovered in big kind of colourful Lego bricks that get sent around then for recycling. And some of those are the plastic materials. And what struck me was that the recycled plastic that was recovered is now more valuable, or it was at the time, than virgin plastic. And the reason for that was because of regulation. So the EU had ordered various industries that they had to use a certain percentage of recycled plastic, and as a result they were going out on the market trying to buy it, and the cost of recycled plastic is now higher than buying the original product. So that just shows what the effect of government regulation can be in those, and that's not a tax, it's not a subsidy, it was just a law. We can also do taxes and subsidies if that helps as well, but that's what struck me. This is a time of huge change. And change means opportunity, and it also means a time when we need academia to help us to innovate. And it's a time when there's an opportunity to get ahead of other countries, other universities, to be the first to discover things, and to be able to deliver products or services in a way that other people haven't done in the past. So I think it's a really exciting time, and I'm really interested to see what academia can do. I'm delighted to see Science Foundation Ireland, see Philip Nolan here, because they're very focused on competitive innovation and on getting teams of academics together to gel them into a cooperative group of people with different skills who are competing against another group down the road. And that really lights up motivation and excitement in people to achieve things that they couldn't normally achieve. So I am really hopeful about that. I'm delighted to see that Philip has moved into that role, and I'm going to be working on an SFI project shortly, which I'm very keen on. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for being with us here today. As I said, Minister Smith does have a vote in the Dáil to get to, but your passion has definitely come through today, and we really appreciate your time here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina, and thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Before I get back to our panel, if anyone, I am keenly aware, if anyone in the audience has a burning question, now is the time if you wanted to put something. Otherwise, I have other questions I want to ask. So just raise your hand. Yeah, up on the top left there.
My question really is about money.
We're just going to get a mic to you. Yeah, if you can just hold on. And if anyone else has a question for our panel, please do just wait for the mic and we'll get to you. Thank you.
My question is really about funding. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you about funding, yeah.
So Ireland as a country spends about 1/3 of what Denmark spends on R&D. So in order for us to tackle these types of challenges that are being described here, we're going to have to significantly increase our spending. And I know the minister just left, so maybe he's the most appropriate person, but we really don't spend enough money in R&D. And the second question I have is that there's a big push about renewable energy, and that's a really good aim, and we need to do it. But I can't remember the name of the ESB representative, but in terms of green hydrogen, hydrogen and the hydrogen economy was promulgated first in the 1970s. It's 50 years ago. So there are enormous technical challenges to moving to a hydrogen economy. How will we do it?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I will put that, and our ESB representative is our project director, Morgan Finnerty. Do you want to start on that, Morgan?
Yeah, so you're right, the technology has existed there for a number of decades, I suppose, and there's various explanations that could be offered up as to why it hasn't come into the mainstream economy to the forefront more, you know. How are we going to do it? Well, I suppose ESB, as part of as I just said there a while ago, as part of their 2040 net zero ambitions, we would see green hydrogen as front and centre in order to deliver an integrated net zero electricity system. Now, what that basically means is that, I suppose one of the questions that a lot of people ask when it comes to wind and solar and renewables and all that is that, okay, the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, so the trick there really is to build enough wind and enough solar to generate and to provide electricity to the grid 3/4 of the time or the majority of the time. And then, for example, simply put, at night time when there isn't a demand on the grid for electricity, you'd have your curtailment of wind then, and what you do at night time then is you'd manufacture green hydrogen from electrolysis and keep it in storage such that during the next day, for example, if the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining, you can use that green hydrogen in something like in thermal plants or in fuel cells or gas turbines to provide dispatchable energy, you know. So that is going to require a large amount of investment. The technology does exist, but it hasn't been rolled out yet really anywhere at a commercial level that would be required to satisfy the demands. So in order to get there, we think there's going to be, as well as government support schemes to roll out offshore wind. So the first offshore wind support scheme now should be this year, and hopefully there will be another one in a couple of years as well. So as well as support schemes for offshore wind, onshore wind and solar, we think there has to be dedicated support schemes as well for hydrogen in order to get us there.
That was a great answer. We didn't plant that, I promise. That was just his answer. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. Is there anyone else that wants to address that, or should we go to another question? Anyone else that has... We'll go to another question. You just raise your hand. Yeah, do we... No, you're just waving. No? Anyone else have a question? There we go, right next to you there. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose just to follow on that point, like where would you see stationary storage versus, like obviously there's a huge cost with hydrogen, but stationary storage with battery storage essentially could provide that same solution.
So where do we see staging storage?
Stationary storage.
Stationary storage. So there's a couple of solutions there, a number of solutions. There's obviously batteries, and that technology already exists, and there are a number of battery projects being rolled out in the country at present. But again, we see the answer there being green hydrogen. So there's a couple of different ways you can store that. I suppose there's There's the potential to store it in geological storage formations such as salt caverns or former gas fields, and you'd be talking about macro storage there from that perspective. And you could also store it at the locations where it's manufactured on land. So for example, one of our flagship projects now, and we might be talking about it a bit later, is the Green Atlantic at Moneypoint initiative, where we're hoping to convert Moneypoint Station and Moneypoint site into, among other things, a hydrogen production and storage facility where we can store hydrogen there for when it needs to be used either in the industry at large or else, as I said, as part of the integrated energy supply system. So there's a number of different solutions there for hydrogen storage that are being featured, you know.
Great, thanks, thank you. Is that everything? Okay, because I just wanted to ask, oh, we have one more there. We'll just take one more question from the floor, yeah.
Hi, thanks for your answers so far. They've been really interesting. I'm just curious whether or not the ESB has focused solely on green hydrogen, or whether or not they're considering nuclear power as a means to providing a safe, consumable baseline energy. Obviously, green hydro seems to be sort of cyclic along the same lines as wind and hydro energy, whereas you wouldn't have that issue with nuclear. So I'm just wondering what the ESB are considering where nuclear is concerned.
Yeah, so look, we would have always considered nuclear power, you know, as an option there, but for various reasons, political being one of them, it hasn't really been brought forward as a solution as of yet, you know. And we think we're at the stage now where, look, it might have been, or it could have been considered as a necessary requirement a few years back, but we think now, because of technologies like, and technological development like offshore wind and onshore wind and solar, what they can offer in terms of electricity generation, that we're in a space now where thankfully we don't need, we think, to be considering things like nuclear just yet, you know.
Great, thank you. You're in the hot seat today, Morgan. Sorry about that. We will move it around now. I just wanted to put to the panel, because it was interesting, Minister Smith there talked about the public and trying to bring the public on board with us. And I suppose we were talking earlier about the parallels with COVID. And, you know, a lot of the challenges that came out within COVID was the pushback from the public, whether it be conspiracy theories, whether it be, you know, different thoughts on tackling it and whether it should be tackled at all, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to the issues of climate change and things like that, and I'm going to start, and we'll go along, David from Beaupark. What do you see as the challenges that Beaupark and other organisations need to do to get the public buy-in and, you know, and assure confidence when it comes to tackling issues like this?
I think it's a hugely challenging issue. I was explaining to Professor JJ at the end earlier that I've been in this space in resources and environmental science. Academically, I studied for 6 years, been working 20 years in industry in that. It's a hugely complicated area, and I don't know that the public or consumers, and if we use the word consumers rather than the public, I don't think it's up to them fully to make rational decisions, because it's so complex. If you're looking at product A versus product B, how could they possibly intuitively know from a life cycle analysis which is a more sustainable product? So I think there is a big role of government to try and put fiscal measures in place, disincentives, and put mechanisms to encourage responsible consumption, or rather responsible production. The plastic bag levy being obviously one of them, but there's other aspects. The repairability, it's great to see that being brought in, but ultimately to get producers responsible, to get them to incorporate eco-design into their products, and to have them responsible for the pollution and the ultimate end of life of their products.
You're very passionate, David, about the environment, and that's in your space, as you said, both, you know, with your academic history and then moving into your work corporately. Do you find it frustrating, you know, that we are still not trying to get the public on board, but that, that things are moving slower, that, you saw something like a global challenge that we just went through and things went at breakneck speed. And, that was so great to see everyone coming together and with an active goal. The sense of urgency isn't as much when it comes to things like this. So for those of you who are so passionate within industry and are here today and here to discuss things, is that frustrating, or do you feel hope now that we are moving things forward with events like this and putting the spotlight on it?
I think you have to feel hope. I mean, there's no doubt, and people that are negative about it and saying, "Oh, it's too little, too late," it's the wrong attitude. Yeah. I'm reminded of a famous phrase: "Fail we may, sail we must," which is really applicable in the environmental space. And you can't have interest or passion in the environment with a defeatist attitude. So the circular economy package coming from Europe, absolutely great. The circular economy bill coming from Ireland is good. It's not enough. We have to keep going more and more, but I mean, you can't be defeatist.
Absolutely. I'm going to move that question on to Emma as well. I am keenly aware of time, so this will sort of be our wrap-up. So, JJ, I know you had some thoughts as well, so I'm going to get to each of you and just to sort of reflect both on the question that I'm asking, which is about the public buy-in and the passion, and and we're so grateful for all of our corporate companies to be here today and to show that passion and to show that interest in engaging with the academia on this. So your thoughts then, Emma, please.
I'm here obviously on behalf of Boston Scientific, so medical device company, so we're not directly interfacing with getting public buy-in in terms of sustainability. So for us, it's probably targeting our employee population. And for us, again, the initiatives that I spoke to before, they're very visible, very part of our culture on site. We also have, I suppose, scrutiny from above, but in terms of redesigning like our products with sustainability in mind, and targets that we have set out to address. And again, as part of that initiative with the carbon neutrality piece, so we've measurable targets there that we're each driven individually as sites to be held accountable to, but we've representatives on each site that feed up into a global management system there. So it's very visible, very current. I mean, I suppose in terms of just the social conscious, it sits well with us. We know when we're looking at the next generation of either processes or devices that we're designing with sustainability in mind, and to see those, I suppose, come to fruition, because we have regulatory challenges and cost challenges with our devices, and I suppose when we can achieve those targets and as well as delivering high quality products, there's just a different level of satisfaction that you're able to cater to both of those. But yeah, I suppose that's kind of, for us, it's the employee population enthusiasm, high visibility to what those targets are, and it's sitting well with us when we see the results of that, where we have patient impacting, products, and as well as taking care of, that's social conscience bit of catering to, protecting our environment as well in parallel.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emma, so much. And thanks to Boston Scientific for being here today as well as Bo Park, of course. We're going to move on then to you, and I'm just going in order now that we are sitting. Dr. Emma, it's just your final thoughts on the challenges, the things that can be done, just a few final thoughts from you.
I think there's some great initiatives in place for kids in primary school. Okay, so most 4 or 5-year-olds know what goes into what bin better than what a lot of adults do. Okay, and I think that's lost as kids actually grow up. I think it's great to see the social responsibility from companies like Boston that Emma works from. I don't think those initiatives enough are going to be sufficient to solve the crisis that we face. Okay, there needs to be a larger public mindset. I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, and a prime example would be if I buy a sandwich in the shop next door. Okay, for an extra 50 cents, I can get a packet of crisps and a bottle of water. Okay, now the packet of crisps is probably single use. All right, the bottle of water only has a 28% chance of being recycled, and that's assuming that I've put it into the correct bin to start with. Right, so there's a lot of initiatives, okay, that can be disincentivized, okay, to make our actions more sustainable, and I suppose in many ways allow the kids that are currently learning in primary school to catch up, okay, with that. So I think on both fronts, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, and then on a kind of higher level technical side of things, which is probably discussion for another day, there's a lot of research projects that we can actually initiate to look at end-of-life, high-value materials as well. Okay, so there's a lot there that can be done.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. We're going to move on then to you, Morgan Finnerty from ESB. Just your final thoughts on the challenges that lie ahead and how we can move forward.
Yeah, so look, there's plenty of challenges there, and look, we'd like to think that there's a movement there now that's been brought forward to meet those challenges, both from the industry side and the academia sector. And I can tell you from our experience as well, there is a good engagement between the industries such as ourselves in ESB and the academia sector. When we link in with people like yourselves here in UL. And, we often get asked, I suppose, the challenges that are there in terms of materials. So in specific, for example, our offshore wind farms, when we bring forward this message that we're going to roll out all this offshore wind and solar and all that, some of the questions that are bounced back at us straight away are like, well, in terms of sustainability, okay, you're not burning fossil fuels or all that, but what are you going to do when the wind farm reaches its end of life? What are you going to do with all those blades? Are you going to dump them throw them into a dump somewhere, or how can you recycle them? So that's one of the main challenges, things like the floating foundations now that we're hoping to start building at Money Point. If they're going to be made out of concrete and steel, how are you going to recycle those at the end of life to keep that sustainability going, So that's where the engagement between ourselves and the academia sector is critical, I think, in order to bring forward solutions to that. And once the solutions are presented then by academia to approach maybe the government and other sectors like that in order to make them commercially viable, So look, there's a lot of good work that's going on, but a lot more to do as well,
Absolutely. Professor Leahy from the Brunel Institute, I suppose we're talking here now about engagement. We're talking about working together. You had a couple of extra thoughts you were saying earlier that you just wanted to bring to that.
I do. I think as consumers, we all overconsume. And I think the EU and national bodies have had eco-labelling. That's been in place for 15 years, and it has failed because consumers respond to two things: price and choice. And so I think if we're relying on the consumer, we're wasting our time. So I do think that other instruments need to be put in place. And by that, and a good example would be if many of us filled our cars this morning at a petrol pump, you would have put biodiesel or bioethanol in unknowingly. But that's an obligation on the fuel industry. And I think for a lot more of the products that we consume, there has to be an obligation on industry that a certain fraction of the materials that go into making up those products are recycled. And I think without those obligations, because the consumer, the consumer will buy them, the same as if it's but if we're relying on the consumer to make the choice, I think that the journey will be a lot longer.
Absolutely, great point. I'm going to move then. We haven't forgotten you, Amit. Sorry, you're up there, and I just wanted to bring you in as well from your point of view, just to get your final thoughts on. You've heard a lot today, on both from the side of the academia side and also from the corporate side. What are your thoughts, Amit, on this?
So there's a lot of things that Emmett said that I can build on, but I'll stay on point here. As I look at the engagement that we're looking for, I'll build off what David said earlier. The customer, right? That's one of the areas where we think there is a large opportunity. Also, as Emma said, we have a very strong program where our employees are engaged. Just last week, all of last week, we had Earth Week at BD, and the sheer engagement and excitement around that was very palpable. So we know that we have a very energized base, people who are looking to make a change in their sphere of influence, whether it is in the operations, directly responsible for making our products, the processes, or also the design. I come from a design background, and the entire R&D is looking at ways of doing sustainability by design, where our designs are inherently sustainable, where components of our products could be imminently recycled, right? So that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is, in my role as the leader of the Sustainable Technology Institute, I also have external facing responsibilities. And in our case, we don't directly sell to the public in all instances, but oftentimes our customers are very large hospital systems who are also on their journey towards sustainability. And so to get in that discussion early on and really co-create that bright future that is going to be of mutual benefit and also will help them meet their sustainability goals is one of my mandates. And I think being able to do that effectively and proactively really opens up a lot of opportunity for just getting good outcomes across the board. So again, under the Sustainable Medical Technology Institute, we have a variety of different mandates that hit all these different aspects. And I'm super excited to be able to really partner with folks here on the call and also outside. Certainly looking forward to more partnership with the Bernal Institute. I'll stop.
Dickinson, and thank you all. I think you'll agree that some great engagement today, some fantastic ideas, and certainly lots of passion. And I think was it Morgan who said, or although I think it might have been Bertie Ahern before you, a lot done, but a lot more to do, I think is what we will say about the subject on the main. But I just want to thank our speakers today. So just to remind you, we had, of course, the lovely Emma Milan from Boston Scientific, Morgan Finnerty from ESB, from Bow Park, of course, David Tobin, and Amit joining us, of course, Amit Limerick from Becton Dickinson. Apologies once again sent from Mike Morrissey from Analog Devices. And then from our academia section, we, of course, had Professor J.J. Leahy today from Bernal Institute and Dr. Emmett O'Reilly. A round of applause. I think they've been fantastic here today. We're delighted that Minister Oisin Smith was with us today. As I said, he had to go to do another vote in the Dáil, and also Professor Luke van der Wielen, who started us off today, and Professor Nora Lee Kennedy. Don't forget, if you are tweeting today, we'd love to see you do so. Some of your thoughts. I'm sure you have a lot from today and the engagement, so please do tweet at #ResearchWeekUL. If you want more information about the rest of the week, ul.ie Research Week. Coming up, don't forget, we've got our 4 parallel research cluster sessions, something to look forward to. On floor 1, as I mentioned earlier, we have our poster comp. I really do suggest you take a look. A lot of effort put into today, and thanks to everyone who organised today and the week. So much attention, so much planning. It doesn't just all come together, and to get all of you here today, I know how difficult that is with your schedules, and so it just shows the passion, and we do appreciate that as well. We do have our Early Career Insights Q&A later as well, and a meet and greet. We'd love to see you at the Castle Troy Park Hotel later as well, where I'm sure there'll be plenty more discussion. But for now, give it up for our panel and our fireside chat. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.